So now let's talk about masterminds. This is a great model, really, really cool model, and there's really nothing but pros to this one. So here we go. With masterminds, the first thing is they're very, very common. And because they're very, very common, it's an easy sale to make. You're not trying to sell someone something that is an unfamiliar concept. So that's really cool. And masterminds exist across all different niches. There are masterminds for women wanting to be more feminine. There's masterminds for fitness people. There's, of course, masterminds in business, which I'm sure you're very, very familiar with. There's masterminds in personal development and improvement. If you can think of a topic, there's probably a mastermind going on within that topic, which is cool. Because of that, it's really easy for your prospects to understand conceptually, and that makes the sale easy. It's also very, very scalable. I have two, and one of them I participate in and help facilitate is something that I run with Digital Marketer called War Room, and I think we have like 75 or 80 members in that thing. And they're all in the same group, and it works fine. It's a very, very big source of our revenue, so it's great. The processes to sell it are very, very simple, so that's another pro. So let's talk about that. First thing you can do is you can sell a mastermind as an upsell from a live event. So obviously, this is a great back end for other models. So the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is if you've got a finite content delivery model going, where you're giving people a live event as part of that, well, a natural thing to do is to upsell into a mastermind from that live event. So that's pretty simple. But what if you just want to do masterminds by themselves? Then you don't want to integrate other models. So that's totally fine. So one is direct mail to an application to a demonstration of power. And that demonstration of power in this case is usually going to be a discovery day. So I have a client and friend, his name is Jason Medley. He runs a mastermind group for real estate investors. These aren't get-rich in real estate guys. These are people who actually buy and sell real estate. And one of the biggest ways he gets new members is he identifies the perfect person, kind of like what we did earlier in our exercise. Then he'll send them a very elaborate direct mail package which says, hey, listen, we have this group. It's amazing. I don't want to talk you into joining it in this letter. That's silly, but if it sounds like something you might think you could benefit from, here's what I want you to do. Go to this website, fill out this form. I will call you if we think we might be a good match. Why don't you come to one of the meetings for free, and if you like it, then join the group. Easiest sale in the world. The guy's got a 7-figure mastermind business, right? So it's really, really cool. Another thing you can do is webinar to application to close. So you can pitch your mastermind group on a webinar. They can apply, and then you can close them on the phone, right? You never want to try to take such a big ticket order straight from a webinar. It's probably not going to work. You're always going to need that personal touch in this case. Another thing is webinar to application to discovery day. So what a discovery day is, and I'll go over this in greater detail when we talk about closing sales, but a discovery day is where you literally get your prospects together in one room, you give them tremendous value, and then they have the option to continue working with you. Now, what precedes that discovery day is a campaign that, of course, tells them the price of your program, tells them what to expect out of your program, etc. So your close rate in a discovery day environment is very, very high because they have usually applied, they've usually traveled, they've shown up, and they're showing up knowing exactly what it's all about. So it's a really, really cool process. So that's how I filled my personal mastermind, was a webinar to an application to a discovery day. It worked really well. Another one is email only, where you literally, if you have an existing list, you send them an email and you say, hey, I've got this mastermind group. Here are the benefits. If you're interested, email me and let me know and we can talk about it. And then you just close them on the phone. That's one of the ways we fill War Room. In fact, it's the primary way that we fill War Room, the mastermind group that I have with Digital Marketer. So it's really cool. So I'll teach you all of these sales processes, but as you can see, they're all very, very low tech, very simple, really kind of easy to understand and assimilate. So how do you pull off a mastermind? What do you got to do? Well, the most common thing is 3 or 4 meetings per year. And really, it's usually 3 versus 4. So most people actually do 3. I'll give you some examples of people who do 4. First of all, each meeting's typically 2 days, and there's a format for each meeting. There's multiple formats for the meetings that we'll go through later, but it's usually just 2 days, a couple times a year, right? 3 or 4 times a year. So at max, you're actually doing quote-unquote work for 8 days of the year. So that's pretty cool per group, depending on how many groups you have. Some folks like to make the meetings experiential, like have them in exotic locations, etc. And some folks like just to get straight to work. So some examples of the straight to work folks are Joe Polish. I'm sure you might have heard of Joe Polish. He's part of ilovemarketing.com with Dean Jackson. He's got his appropriately named 25K group, which of course is 25,000 to join. Those dudes meet, I think, 4 times a year at Joe's headquarters in Arizona, and they just get to work. There's Dan Sullivan's strategic coach group. They meet 1 day per quarter, and that's it. And you get some support from his team between your quarterly meetings, but the thing you're buying is that quarterly meeting. It's $20,000. I'm a member. Love it. There's War Room, that one run with Digital Marketer. We're 20 grand. We meet quarterly, 2 days per quarter. And we meet at various locations each time, but none of them are experiential. We're not trying to provide like the exotic vacation experience, right? So folks who run more experiential groups, good examples, are Kevin Nations and Tony Robbins. So you probably know Kevin. Pretty good fella. He's got something called The Family, which I think is now like $80,000 a year to join, which is great, and he does quite well with it. His meetings have a bit of an experiential flair to them. So you have the ability to come, and every meeting, this is what I understand, by the way. I haven't actually been, but some of his members are clients of mine as well. And they say it's really cool. And you show up, and the first day you're like doing fun stuff. So you're sort of like preparing. So you can go zip lining or spa day or all kinds of stuff. He also does meetings in Hawaii sometimes with his guys. And then, you start working. Tony Robbins' Platinum Group is almost 100% experiential. So if you're part of Tony Robbins' Platinum Group, that is essentially a mastermind. Not very small. I think there's probably a couple hundred people in it, but they're going places every year. Part of the appeal is you get to go on these exotic trips and do cool stuff, right? So you can make the experience part of the package that you're selling. And either way is fine. You can do experiential or get to work. Personally, we just get to work in our groups, and I like that, and the clients like it pretty good. So it's really whatever you want to do. Okay, so let's talk about pricing, right? So this is a little bit of a different approach when you're selling masterminds. So it's best to reverse engineer really your pricing and your sales based on your annual income versus monthly, because it's a little weird since you're doing like quarterly meetings or whatever to try to build a monthly sales process for masterminds. So I'll show you how to do it here. So let's say you need $92,000 a month. That's your real number, since that's the example we've been going off of. That means you're basically needing $1.1 million per year. Well, if you're charging $18,000 for a year-long mastermind program, you need 61 members, right? You can get your 18 grand up front. You can get it in 3 payments of 6 grand. You can get it in 2 payments of 9. You can get it a $10,000 down payment with 8 monthly payments of $1,000. Really, however you want to do it. But basically, you're going to need 61 members throughout the entire year to make your number, right? So what you can do is you can have multiple small groups, or you can have one big group. Now, here's the thing about masterminds. If you're going to do them, you need to just do them, right? Like the best way to do it is to not put pressure on yourself and just commit to having a mastermind all the time. I don't mean facilitating one every day, but I mean we're not just going to do one year. You're going to make that your model, and you're going to commit to always having this thing. So in War Room, for example, we know we're always going to have War Room, right? So when that enables us to not have to do a mad sprint to get 61 members or 75 members or whatever our revenue goal is within one small period of time. We can constantly be adding new members quarterly. And then once we have our group filled up, we just try to make up for the guys who don't renew for the following group, right? So here's how it works. Build your marketing to get you members on a quarterly basis. And of course, I'll show you all the promotions and stuff later. We're just getting the big picture overview. So here's the sales strategy. In quarter number 1, Q1, now this doesn't have to be the first fiscal quarter of a year, by the way. This could just be whenever you start, so we'll just call it phase 1, quarter 1. Let's say your goal is to get 20 members. Now, why does this make sense? It makes sense because if you're doing one meeting per quarter, you can easily sell 20 members and get them to that one meeting. So you're not like, hey, we're going to start 7 months from now. Let's begin, right? And say, okay, welcome to the mastermind. Our first meeting is, in 8 weeks or whatever. I'm going to send you some gifts and some stuff to get you warmed up. We do that. For example, my group, everyone who joined, I sent them some Dan Sullivan materials I just bought from Amazon, right? I mean, they were paying me $35,000, so I didn't mind a couple $100 worth of cool stuff to send them before we started, right? I didn't mind doing a conference call with them if they needed anything before our first official meeting, totally fine. Now, in queue number 2, you get 20 more members, right? Now remember, in our little goal here, we want 61 members. In Q3, let's say you get another 20 members. Let's say you get 21 members in the third quarter. Well, guess what? Now you've hit that revenue goal, right? For the year, you've made your $1 million. So in Q number 4, what you're going to focus on now isn't on getting 20 new members. It's on renewing the guys you got in your first quarter to stick with you, right? And if anyone drops off, now you're just like, okay, I'm just going to get that many members. So let's say for that first group of folks who joined you in the first quarter, if they're not going to renew, let's say 15 of them renew and 5 of them don't, well, in Q4, all you got to do is get 5 new members, right? So now it becomes, after your first year, it really becomes a war against attrition. And of course, you're always going to have some people not renew. It's normal, right? So you don't have to renew it every single quarter. You're not just dropping off, quitting and then having to get 20 new members. You're basically front-loading your customer acquisition in this first 3 quarters of the year, and then ongoing for the rest of your career, you're basically just filling spaces where people have left. So, for example, in War Room right now, I think we have something like 10 available seats for War Room, right? So one thing we could do if we had time to do it, which we really aren't even worried about it because we're all of us have a lot of stuff going on, but we could do an email-only campaign to our list and say, hey, we have a couple spots available for War Room. We've got a meeting coming up in 8 weeks. If you're interested in joining, fill out this application. We'll call you. We'll see if we're a good fit, etc. And then we could close them. That's really how we sell War Room, and it's how we always have. So that is kind of how the big picture sales strategy works for Masterminds. It's a little different than having a monthly goal. Instead, we just focus on getting X members per quarter for 3 quarters, and then we just focus on renewals. The trick to making it all work is to know that you're going to do Mastermind every year. Right, that's the trick to making it work. So if a guy joins in Q2, if you're always doing masterminds, if you're having a quarterly meeting forever, it doesn't matter. His year starts in Q2 and he ends in Q2 of the following year, you see. So it's 12 months from the date he joins. So that's how you do it. That's a 30,000-foot view. Awesome model. Nothing but pros to it. The cons, I guess, if you had to have one, are that you have to show up and do something for 8 days a year if you're doing quarterly. So that's about it. I enjoy all of my mastermind groups, and they're pretty fun. So that's the 30,000-foot view of mastermind model. Of course, we'll do a deeper dive next week. But if this model appeals to you, this is the big picture. I'll see you in the next video.